welcome back to Conan Exploits, and today we pick up exactly where we left off. In the last video we had started the basic design of an office network that involved at least 5 departments, that is management, marketing, sales, accounts, HR, and obviously the IT room, or where you'll have the IT server, and this is where you'll be situated. Now in the last video, apart from setting up the switches, we saw how to set up the console password, how to set up a banner, how to log in, and also how to basically set up the network by partitioning it using the subnetting system, which is essentially a classless format once you begin subnetting, because you will have class A, class B, class C IP addresses, but for example the class A IP addresses, they are up to 8, that is they are /8, that's where the net mask is 255.0.0.0. but once you start borrowing, a class A becomes classless, because in a class A you can borrow 16 or 17 bits, and the moment you've borrowed 17 bits you are officially in 25/25, a net mask of 255.255.255/128, which means the net mask points to a typical class C, but then the IP address is in class A. That's why we're saying it's a classless network. In our case, however, we decided that in our office we'll be using the VLANs, and so let's continue exactly where we left off last time. So let's go into configuration mode and check whether our VTP protocol is working. That is, we want this one. Let me set up a small box for them. Let me select another fill color, and let's go with not too bright. Let's go with that. Let's have that. Let's have that. Our server switch. Let's have that. And finally, for management. Now the purpose of this box is to help you. So what do? We have VLAN 10, and with management, this is it. So let me copy that, type it in here, and marketing, copy that, type it in there, sales, copy that, type it in there, accounts, copy that, type it in there, our HR, the people who hire us, so type it in there, and finally our server. Yes, so now that we have this, we want to check whether all the purpose of creating all these VLANs in all these networks is because from your server point of view, you need to be able to access this switch despite the fact that it will be operating under a different VLAN. Well, naturally for all switches, immediately out of the box, they all have one VLAN, that's VLAN 1, and all the ports, no matter the number of connection ports in there, they are all configured to that specific VLAN, but it's always possible to adjust. Now for us, this is what we'll do. We'll be setting up VLANs for each of these, but we want to set them all up from the server point of view. So here, let me type VLAN. Let's begin with maybe for marketing VLAN. No, that's not the first one. The first one is VLAN 10. That's for the voice network. We'll look at that later. So let's begin with marketing VLAN 30. It has created the VLAN, and you can see it has gone into configuration for the VLAN. So if you check the possible commands, you find that you can always name it. So VLAN 30, we'll give it the name of marketing. Let's exit, and we can say show VLAN. You see, this is the default VLAN, VLAN 1, and now we have a VLAN 30. So now that our server switch, let's go back to show VTP status. Our server switch, the server on switch, is also operating VTP mode server. Now, because we set up all the other switches to be in client mode, going into any switch, let's exit, and we tell it show VTP status, it should have the VLAN 30. Yes, it's in client. Okay, so now that is fully set up, let me delete this device. This will be for the next. Cancel, delete that device, escape. So now that we have set up our VLAN network, the next thing we need to do is to set up all these connections as trunk, the ports. You find that in each of these, it's port 1, port 1, port 1, port 1, port 1. I need to go into all these devices and configure them as in trunk mode. That is, as long as that port is in trunk mode, it will be able to download, or it will be simply like an extension of another switch. So basically, once you set up all these ports in the departments as trunk ports, you'll be able to extend your server switch, and it will have many limbs, or more adept way of putting it. All these ports will be in perfect sync. Let's say you had a switch of maybe 24 ports, and you connect it to another switch of 24 ports. You effectively have a switch of 48 ports, as long as you've set them up in trunk mode. So because I can see the port name here is faster than it one, so I'll go into that port, and I'll change it into switch port mode. Check what you can do. You can change it to mode, and the mode, let's type that in. Look at what you can do with that. It can either be trunk, dynamic, or access. I'll set it to trunk. Now it's changed to trunk. The next thing, I'll go here. Where is that? It's in fast Ethernet 2 in my server switch. So I'll go into interface, fast Ethernet 2, and I'll change it into switch port mode trunk. Now another good thing with the Cisco packet tracer, if I hover over the switch, it shows you all your connections, and if you look at faster than at 1, it's not assigned to any VLAN, which means it's been successfully configured as a trunk. And again, if you look here, you'll see that it's orange, it's not green. That means that the server switch and the marketing switch are in communication, and they are, yes, now they're in sync. If you look, it's green. That means that if I go back here, let me exit, and I show the VTP status, it's still in client mode. If I now look at show VLANs, you see I have successfully downloaded the marketing configuration to this marketing switch. So let's do the same for all these switches. Let's go into the management, fast Ethernet 1, enable, configure, yes, configure, and now I'll go into the interface for fast Ethernet 1. I'll change into switch port mode trunk. That is successful. Go into accounts, do the same, interface. If you check, I made sure it's all in fast Ethernet 1. It's always possible to change whatever configuration port you want. I'll show you that later on. So let's set this one to switch port mode trunk. That's successful. HR configure interface fast Ethernet 1 switch port mode trunk. Sales enable switch port, sorry for that, mode trunk. What? Oh, sorry for that. Configure terminal interface fast Ethernet 1 switch port mode trunk. And now that that is set up, let's check. Let's exit. Let's check whether it's downloaded the VLANs. It hasn't. If you take a guess why, try. The reason is on this end I have set it up. If you look at it, all of them, I have set up all these ports as trunks, but the only one that I had set up as trunk on both ends is the one for the marketing switch, which means that you have to come back to the main switch. Let's exit here, and you can say show IP interface brief, and you'll see whether they have automatically come to any form of agreement. So let's close that. Let's come back to sales, show VLANs. Yes, the reason is because normally all these ports are in set to automatic configuration. Either it's an access port or it's a trunk port. But if you set one port permanently on the other side of the switch, you are communicating from two switches. If one switch port is set permanently or administratively to trunk mode, the other switch will automatically configure itself as a trunk, because it will realize, oh, this is a trunk, so the only way I can communicate with that is if I'm also in trunk mode. And that's how you see they have all downloaded the marketing VLAN. So next thing, let's create all these other VLANs. Let's go into configuration mode. So now we had created VLAN 30, which means we have to create VLAN 20, 40, 50, 60 and 100. So let's do that. VLAN 20, name management, exit. Let's go again. VLAN 40, sales, name sales, exit. Again VLAN 50, name accounts, exit. Again VLAN 60, name HR, exit. VLAN 100, name IT. That'll say no, so let's do this. IT underscore server. Yeah, and that's it. So now that we've done that, let's go into any random switch, exit. Let's see, show VLAN, and there you have it. You see, IT server, HR, they are all here. That's the HR switch, and it will be the same for all these other switches. If you go anywhere, you show VLAN, you'll find them. And that's the beauty of it. The VLAN trunking protocol by Cisco, actually it's unique to Cisco, is very, very powerful, and at the same time it's extremely dangerous, because look at it this way. Yes, you've set up all your switches, they are in perfect sync. Any additional configuration you make to your server switch is copied automatically to all the other switches. What happens when someone connects a random switch, and a switch that they've been practicing on, they've been trying to configure things so that they can maybe upgrade the network or something, and they connect it to your network, and you hadn't set a domain and a password, or the other switch is also the same domain, the same password, and it's also in server mode, and it has a higher VTP version. What I mean by VTP version, let's come here, show VTP status. This is the VTP version. What happens is that the new switch that has a higher VTP version will copy all its instructions, however flawed they are, into all your new switches, and automatically your network will go down. That's a very, very risky thing, and that's why normally Cisco always advises you not to use VTP. They always advise you to go configure all your switches manually. But then if you think that you are very good at it and that you can secure your network effectively from such failures, hey, go at it. There's also always the ability not to use it and go through all the other steps that I've gone through. Configure your switches, create the VLANs in each switch. So the next thing that we'll be doing is we'll be giving IP addresses to all these switches. So let's see, IP interface, show IP interface brief. You see, we only have VLAN 1, so let's go conft and we'll go into interface VLAN. This for marketing, which means it's VLAN 30. You see, it tells you that interface VLAN 30, change state to up, and blah blah blah. So if I exit this and I look at the IP interface brief, I'll automatically find my VLAN 30 here. It's up, but it doesn't have an IP address, which means from the server point of view, I cannot access it. These are some of the things that we'll be looking at, how to make sure that all these switches can be accessed from the server switch, which will be here. Let's bring in end devices. Now let's say this is a server computer. We want to be able to access all these switches from this server. So what do we do? Let me name it server room computer. You want the server room computer to be able to access all this via telnet. You can always use a console server that will connect to all these ports, and within the press of a button you'll be able to access all these switches. These are some of the things that we'll be looking at in the next series of videos going forward. We'll make sure that this network is fully functional and that all the computers within the departments can only communicate within themselves and the internet, but the server room computer can access all these switches, the connected devices, and the internet access. So essentially we want this to be like the supercomputer of the network, in a manner of speaking. So thank you for watching, and just a brief of what we've looked at today. We've set the host name, we've set the banner for the server computer, we've set a console password, the telnet password, the enable password, management IP for all these switches, the gateway. We've looked at shutdown, we haven't really looked at negating command, and let's look at saving the configuration. Let's do that quickly. If you come here, So how do you save the configuration? Simply typing in copy, you'll see what you need to copy from. Now because our switch is on, we are copying from the running configuration. That's what we've been working on throughout this series. So I'll do copy run, and it's asking you copy to where. You can always copy to startup configuration. So I'll type in start, enter, and it will ask you to confirm you want to copy from startup to configuration. Make sure that you do not get this wrong, because if you get this wrong and you're copying from destination file name, because if you get this wrong and you copy from the startup configuration to the running configuration, all the configurations that you've been making before that point will be null and void. That means you'll have sat there in your computer for hours doing nothing. You see, it tells you it's built-in configuration. Okay, there's always, initially a few years back, before some of the updates were made, if you simply wrote write, it did the exact same thing. But however, this type of command is slowly being phased out, and you'll have to use a more defined or a more user-friendly form of communication with the switch. So in the next series we'll be looking how to set up a default gateway, how to enable the password, and how to telnet into the computer. And later on we'll also look at how to set up secure shell access to that computer, how to switch off, how to set up port security where only one computer can connect to a given port. This form of security access will be using the MAC or the media access, and so much more. Kindly, if you like the content, like and subscribe to the channel, and see you next week. Thank you.